Hello, everyone. Happy Global Community Engagement Day and also happy birthday, Wendy. This is our fifth year doing Global Community Engagement Day. Can you believe it? Um, Certainly last year was a really good year, and obviously we'll get into that in a moment. But before we do start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land in which we meet today and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'm going to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today with us, as well extend to all other traditional owners joining us from foreign lands. So obviously extending that to the land in which Wendy sits at the moment. I'm currently on Kaurna land in Adelaide and the Adelaide Plains. Becky, if you want to say where
Yeah,
you...
I'm also on Ghana land, just
Oh,
at the very southern tip
just
of
on the
Ghana
end.
land. Yep. Always was, always
And
will
I'm
be.
on the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh people in Vancouver in British Columbia.
There we go.
Nice. And I pay my respects to them.
Awesome.
Good start. So here we are. Yes, year 5 of Global Community Engagement Day.
Happy birthday, Wendy. Happy birthday.
Wendy.
Thank you.
5 years old today, Wendy. Well done.
That's right. Yep, 5. Going on 6.
And the other day was Australia Day. Obviously, here in Australia, I actually turned 2 because I've been an Australian citizen for 2 years. So,
mine was 10.
So
Mine was 10 yesterday. Yeah.
One of my friends turned an adult as well. She was like, I'm 18 today. She's actually, I won't say how old she is, but she's 18 years an Australian citizen. And we're all global citizens, obviously, hence Global Community Engagement Day as well. Do we want to do a quick rundown of what happened last year before we get into...
Yeah, should we? We should, shouldn't we? And we should see where we're at on the goals that we set.
Yeah, so obviously last year, year 4, the theme, I think, was engaging children last year. And we hit 31 countries last year, over 200 LinkedIn posts, over 1,000 tweets. I'm not going to count them all, sorry. And around 200 Instagram posts, multiple hashtags. So the one we started with many years ago was hashtag #ComEngageDay. That has morphed into hashtag Community Engagement Day. And what is the most popular now is hashtag Global Community Engagement Day. And there are various versions of that as well, with numbers after, so 21 or 2021. And obviously this year it'd be 2022. This year's theme is going to be hybrid engagement. So we are going to be looking out for those kind of posts, especially, but obviously Global Community Engagement Day is about everyone getting together and celebrating everything about the practice that is community engagement, whether we do it, whether we're part of it, those organizations that promote it, etc., etc. So that's certainly where we're at the moment.
Amazing. Yeah, I love it. And the goals that we set for last year, Andrew, when we had this chat last year, as the kind of are we like the I was going to say the co-instigators, the creators? I mean, Andrew came up with the idea that we needed a Global Community Engagement Day, and then you ran a bit of a poll, didn't you, Andrew, at the time, and we were looking for someone who's inspired us in our practice, and it went unanimously to Dr. Wendy Sarkissian. And Wendy then got the email saying, "When's your birthday, Wendy?" And she said 28th of January, and we were like, boom, that's Global Community Engagement Day. I guess we're kind of like the 3 musketeers of Global Community Engagement Day, aren't we? Kind of really trying to lead the charge. And I must say, I mean, we've worked on quite a few things together, all 3 of us, and this has been probably by far the most groundswell that there's ever been, hasn't there? Like you say, 31 countries. The one, though, the reason I'm saying that is because the one continent that we didn't engage with last year was Antarctica. And so we haven't done anything towards seeing if Antarctica might do something this year on Global Community Engagement Day.
If you're out there, we're ready. Yes.
The other one, the goal I set personally, was that I wanted Barack Obama involved in Global Community Engagement Day. And again, I haven't done anything towards that other than mention him a couple of times in my book, I reckon. But you know what? He knows where I am. He can come and find us when he's ready. He'll come.
There's no black SUVs circling around the McLaren Vale area, looking for the top shed or the bottom shed. And then obviously my goal was to try and get a Google Doodle I did say for this year, but you said, don't worry, 10 years will be fine.
That's good.
But again, not really done much apart from name dropping them in a few tweets and a LinkedIn post. Unfortunately, Google haven't got back to me, but again, I think they definitely know where I am.
Exactly, when they're ready.
Every time I get in the car, it says, on my phone says, do you want to put on Google Maps, and tells me where I'm going before I even know where I'm going. So they definitely know where I am.
Brilliant. So hybrid engagement, should we talk about that briefly before we get on to some bigger picture stuff, I reckon?
Sure. I set the theme of hybrid engagement. Obviously, we've been very much affected by the global pandemic, COVID-19, over the last 2 years. Wherever we are in the world, it doesn't really matter. And it's had a massive effect on community engagement, from, almost being completely cancelled at one point, and a big, I don't know, dare we use the word pivot? what are the keywords that people are using at the moment? Pivot and all that kind of stuff. Pivot to online. Initially, there was a big uptake of online, especially consultants learning new tools, councils, state government agencies, obviously looking for those platforms, those online tools that they can use to continue engagement with their communities. And then as we've kind of come out of 21 and into 22 now, we're starting to see more of what is being termed hybrid engagement. So it's actually a combination of the both, which is great, bringing back face-to-face in line with digital engagement, but ultimately giving people a choice. So ultimately saying, we're actually doing this engagement process. You can, if you want, still come to a face-to-face opportunity, and there will be an element of digital, or if you want to join us online, there is going to be some digital elements there, so you can actually still engage with that process. So a hybrid approach, and there's obviously more to it than that. I'm obviously glossing over very quickly there, but that's certainly the terms that we're starting to see out of some of those countries that have gone back to trying a bit of face-to-face now.
I found it quite interesting over the last year, certainly here in Australia. We were sitting quite comfortably for a while. Our borders were still shut, and I think we thought we'd got through the pandemic, but we hadn't actually started it yet, really. And I noticed that we were starting to slip back to the old way of doing things, which was going 100% kind of face-to-face. I was starting to get calls again from clients about, we want to do some face-to-face workshops, some engagement. And now Australia's borders have opened. We're suddenly now hit with the pandemic. Albeit in a very different way to a couple of years ago when we weren't vaccinated. But I've now seen that we're now going, hang on, we can't just do face-to-face anymore. We're still having to have that online element. And that's actually a relief to me, because I'm of the opinion, I know Wendy's going to probably share some thoughts on this in a sec. I'm of the opinion, I want the hybrid model. I'm personally someone who's, I've got young children, I'm a full-time business owner. I'm not going to go along to everything in person, but I would love the opportunity to chat online or type online or share my thoughts in a really good way. So I'm a big fan of the hybrid model. And I think this journey of COVID-19, the ups and downs, is kind of really sort of throwing us around a bit. It's like a bumpy ride. But I'm still hoping at the end we come out where we have that hybrid way of working, where we're always thinking from the outset, face-to-face engagement, digital engagement, and traditional engagement. I call that kind of like the written engagement. Your good old, some people want to write a letter and get involved in their community by sending something in to their mayor or whoever by letter. So I'm a big fan.
I actually think before COVID, BC, 2020 BC, we were actually going backwards a little bit in community engagement, I think, personally, and I've written a bit of a blog for today about how I actually think community engagement has come a little bit more difficult. People are finding it difficult to get involved in. They've got a lot on their plate. That work-life balance certainly wasn't there, and people didn't have the choice of how to engage. It was either go to a meeting or register to an online platform. I also think it had become a little bit too tick boxy, especially here in South Australia. I actually think we went backwards after the previous government did so much with their Better Together processes, and then we went backwards a little bit. It became very prescribed in the way that engagement was done, and it's happened in other states as well, where it's actually part of their kind of local government acts where they have to do certain bits of engagement in certain ways. It's just become too tick boxy. And I also think before COVID, it had become very academic. There are so many. Well, you can do a degree now in community engagement, which is actually excellent. I love the fact that you can do a pure degree in community engagement. But what I didn't like was all those papers on community engagement that tried to dissect, improve, create new techniques, models, frameworks. Over the last 5 years, they were often written by someone who was an eternal student and actually didn't have the experience of working with community. And I actually think that actually stepped us back a little bit. We almost need to, and there's a very good TED talk by Ernesto Ceroli that basically just says, shut up and listen. Shut up and listen, because we need to actually keep it simple. And this is going to be the first plug for your book, Becky the author, for the love of community engagement. Becky's written a book which really simplifies, how easy community engagement should be based on her experiences. And Becky's experiences are very similar to mine. Becky's done very, amazing work over 20 plus years of community engagement that is pretty simple in the way that you do it, but it gets the results, because at the heart of it, and this is the key, at the heart of it is the community.
Exactly.
It's not a process, though there is a process. It's not academic. It's not difficult to get involved. It's not a tick box exercise, definitely. So.
It's got the people where Andrew, I always quote you. It's about putting community back in community engagement. Really simple.
I think what hybrid engagement will hopefully do is we'll actually give people more of a choice, and in some ways, as long as they're simple choices, keep it simple, stupid. Then hybrid engagement is actually going to take us back.
I think that people are calling out for a range of opportunities to engage because their lives are so different now. Certainly this is the case in Vancouver. I've just in the final stages of writing up a survey where we surveyed members of residents associations in Vancouver about their attitudes towards engagement with the city of Vancouver before and during the pandemic. And we're just writing up the results now. And it's just a desperate plea from people's souls not to abandon face-to-face. People like many aspects of digital engagement, no question. I think digital engagement's here to stay, and it's excellent. It has its place. But what people are saying is, don't separate yourselves from us anymore. We need, part of the process of democracy is meeting with public officials, elected officers, planners, engagement people. That's part of the business. That's the contract between the community and a municipality. Don't forget that the contract involves us and our perceptions. And it's some of the comments are absolutely shocking, really. And people are so frightened that a municipality that's never been very authentic about its engagement might now hide behind COVID restrictions and never go back to face-to-face. So I think this is wonderful for this year to be promoting a hybrid model. And I think that we'll find, particularly in the situation in Australia, which has been very much up and down, I've watched it very, very carefully since I lived there for nearly 50 years. There are blessings nested in all this confusion. People have learned what works. They've learned what doesn't work. They've realized that you still need a variety of ways to respond and to be engaged. And I think we'll find that the pandemic's taught us a lot. If we keep looking for alacrity, we've got to be on our feet here. We've really got to see what the lessons are and not come to any premature conclusions. But I think digital engagement has shown what it can do. And we've also heard that people, they want to be heard personally. We are animals. We are human herd animals, and we're used to doing things in community.
And I think what we're trying to do is, from our practice of community engagement, because as three are practitioners that want to see the community at the center, it's not just about, oh, we need to consult on something, we better go to those pesky community. We're the opposite of that. We are We want to build community. We want to build trust. We want to build ownership. We want to have that sense of belonging. And so then when we think about the tools to do that, face-to-face is a huge part of that, coming together in a community and building that sense of place and ownership. Equally,
and building partnership.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
Equally, your online tools can also build that sense of community and ownership. It's all the different prongs, isn't it, of how to build that community.
There's only one thing I think that came through very strongly in this Vancouver survey, and that is that people don't respect the input model. Your input will be taken on board. And I imagine this rusted ship that's, finally banked someplace in Asia and it's just scrap metal. It was taken on board. It never went anyplace. The input-output model is now not respected. People want partnership. They want relationships. They want responsibilities. They want shared governance of engagement. So the idea that we're going to go out and collect it and it can be done efficiently online, I think we're way, way past the input-output model of engagement now. But people still have them in their guidelines.
That's what I was going to say. I think we are beyond that, and that's where we're trying to, or are leading this conversation in community engagement. We are beyond. I like that. We are beyond the input-output. We are beyond that transactional. Have your say. Let's not get into that right now. That's covered in other videos. But that sort of, I call it the paternalistic top-down engagement, input, output. We are beyond that. Community engagement needs to now move to that partnership, collaboration, working together, respect, listening. Oh, the list goes on. Yeah, we're in it together.
That's what I was saying about it. It's become a little bit too processy, a little bit too academic. And whilst it's good for us, we're happy that it has made that leap forward, because for some of us, all of us here have worked in community engagement for over 20 years now. It's been a long process for us to get to where it is now.
Absolutely.
But actually, in some ways, it has pegged it back a bit. And the digital inclusion, someone quoted to me once, I think it was either in a training session or I can't remember, in a chat. I work in the digital engagement space, so I hear this quite a lot, but digital basically needs to mimic the in-person ritual, but in a more creative way, because you need people to be switched on first, and you need them to stay online to actually create, take part in the activity that you've got there for them. So it's
like translating what Wendy's saying. Wendy's saying she wants to know that you can still smell the people. We need online needs to somehow mimic that. How do you actually smell the people and kind of really get to know each other? And like you say, it needs to be more creative to do that.
And certainly, like, you'll hear it a lot in the digital space that they want to take you beyond the survey, and there are a lot of different tools there to do that. But there needs to be that element of creativity, because to get people to sit in a workshop in person for an hour, there is a tea in or coffee, there's sandwiches, there's biscuits, there's sweets, there's tangible stuff to do and get hold of. There might be some sticky dots, there might be post-it notes, there might be a map. If you're at a Becky workshop, there'll be some cars to play with on a piece of turf, something like that. But when you're online and you're filling out a survey or doing an activity, you've also got Netflix on in the corner. You've got your phone on your lap, probably, that you're tweeting or, watching TikTok videos or something like that. There's so many distractions that when digital stuff is included, it needs to really outline what is going to happen, how long it's going to take that person to do it, and it has to be creative.
Can I go on. Sorry, finish off.
I was just going to say that hybrid model needs to mesh the two together so that you are really mimicking those two rituals at the same time, so that people have that choice whether to switch on their laptop or rock up to a town hall at 6 o'clock in the evening, when they've got other things better to do. So,
Definitely. And I was just going to add, I'm really concerned. I'm calling it the copy and paste culture since yesterday. I came up with this term, and I'm worried I'm worried even in face-to-face engagement this is happening. I'm sort of moving us on a little bit here from the actual tools, but I'm worried. I did a post yesterday. Yesterday in Australia was what many people call Australia Day, 26th of January. Sorry, day before yesterday. And many of us here now have shifted our thinking on that. And actually what we're hearing from our First Nations friends is that this is a really sad day. It's actually Invasion Day. It's Survival Day. It's a day of mourning. Yeah. And so I did a little post just sort of saying this, and somebody commented on the post, many people, you know, agreeing and commenting and having a discussion. And somebody then posted a comment of facts about, actually, no, this is why this day is celebrated on this date. And it was all these dates, different things. And I thought, she can't have written this. This is like a really detailed piece of research that she's done. So I just commented back, did you write this out of interest? No, I copied it off a friend's wall. There are, you know, she'd seen it and copied it and pasted it. And then I thought, well, actually, I've seen this text before. I'll just Google it quickly. And I checked it, and there had already been a big fact check on this particular piece that had circulated a couple of years ago that's still obviously circulating. And this just really got me thinking that, gosh, and I went back to the person saying, oh, in your own words, can you tell me what you think from what you're hearing from our friends? You know, what are you hearing personally? Write it in your own words. And that really, it highlighted for me that we're at this point just in society where I worry we're losing the ability to think for ourselves and to really come up, you know, weigh things up and, you know, make considered, informed opinions on things and contributions to processes without just copying and pasting.
Yeah.
So
that brings us to today as well, with obviously COVID and the anti-vax kind of standpoints, and you know, what can you trust that's online? What can you trust that's written and stuck on a lamppost, or you know, as you're walking past it? And again, you know, you can read whatever you want, but you've got to think for yourself. I mean, I read a stat the other day. It said that 90% of the anti-vax material that you read comes from about 12 influencers based out of the United States. You know, whether that's true or not, you know, you've got to obviously take everything that you read online these days with a pinch of salt. But yeah, if that's true, then you know, you can see why that stuff just gets repeated over and over again. And
that comes to trust, doesn't it? Have you watched Don't Look Up on Netflix?
Yes, yeah.
Have you seen it, Wendy? There's a Netflix recommendation, Don't Look Up, and it's
Don't Look Up, absolutely.
Yes.
Don't Look Up is a wonderful example of what we're talking about. If you look at the reviews, they're completely split. Rotten Tomatoes gives it 26 or something, or 56. And other reviewers are giving it 5 stars out of 5. And it seems to me, from what I can tell, and this would be a really interesting thing to look at in an engagement context, that people who are in the groove about climate change, who really, we believe it now in our DNA. And for some of us as activists, we've been activists for decades. We believe that it's the most powerful, wonderful film we've seen in years, and it's just going to change the world. And then there's a whole other bunch of people who absolutely don't want to look this reality in the face. Now, maybe it's because it's satire. Satire is difficult for some people, but it is so telling, that movie. We should be telling everybody, if you're really interested in thinking about engagement, you want to have a look at that movie, because it just nails the climate crisis using a metaphor, using another story. It's brilliant. I love it.
And for me, wasn't it? It's so good. And for me, it kind of highlighted again that the role of scientists and the role of experts, and the point at which opinion and experiences, you know, you kind of have to pause and you have to say, no, hang on, what are the facts telling us here? What are the experts, the people, you know, trained in this? What are they telling us? And are we listening to them?
So can I talk about our local expert for a moment here in Vancouver? Okay, I'll just make this quick. So Vancouver has a bad reputation amongst people in the community engagement sphere for trying to bat above its level, trying to punch above its weight, and pretending that it's doing things it's not. And most of us who are really into community engagement know that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in Vancouver. However, in British Columbia, the province that we're in here, we've had one powerful, influential, very modest woman running our COVID operation now for the last almost 2 years. And she's had a very, very simple message. And I don't think we need to look at the pictures, but I'll just sort of tell you what the message is. Her name is Bonnie Henry. And we can buy tea towels and pot holders and T-shirts and Fluvog has made a special shoe, the Bonnie Henry shoe. So we're really into our Bonnie here.
Why a shoe?
She's basically just got a Fluvog shoe for Bonnie Henry. Absolutely, you can buy it at the store.
Wow!
Fluvog made a shoe in her honor. So she just says,
"Okay,
be kind, be calm, and be safe." And she's continues to say this, and the optics are so interesting when you see her in her daily press conference. We've got the Minister for Health and the Premier of British Columbia deferentially standing to the side while this woman, and she's not an elderly woman by any means, I would call her a young woman, tells us how it works. And she continues to tell us how it works. Now, this is a really interesting message. It's almost a Buddhist message. It's a message about compassion. It's about safety. It's about community. It's about calmness. It's about trying not to allow your emotions to throw you when you hear a new frightening set of data. But it's positioned British Columbia, this ordinary province in many other ways, better than all the other provinces except the very tiny ones in Canada, and tracking better than dozens of European countries and other countries. Now, we don't have a high anti-vaxxer rate here, and we don't have the sorts of issues that we've got south of the border, but it seemed to me that we could almost take this as a mantra for going forward with community engagement in the hybrid realms that we've talked about. Just try to be kind. You know, when you look at the in-person engagements that we've seen, we often see a facilitator listening very closely to a distressed person and just trying to be kind while this person expresses their agitation, frustration, grief, suspicion, anger, whatever. And the next one is be calm. And so often people are distressed, but our job as facilitators is to stay calm. And the third one about safety is obviously in the COVID environment, it's about safety from the virus. But I think we can spend more time in making our context safe, emotionally safe. You know, in a physical environment, we do pay a lot of attention to what the social workers call the hygiene factors. We think about acoustics, we think about seating, we think about whether somebody with an impairment will be comfortable there and so on. And I think if we made emotional safety one of our hallmarks for this year, I think that would be really, really important. Because I don't know how you lot are. You've had a very different hybrid experience. We've been in and out of many lockdowns for 2 years here. But I would say that every person I know is at the edge. We're anxious, we're short-tempered. I'm very sort of phlegmatic, and I'm one day I'm temperamental and the next day I'm fine. And one moment I'm in the zone and the next minute I'm crying for the state of the earth. We're really upset as a species. And if we can create emotional safety in our processes, online, hybrid, in person, I think we'll be doing people a huge favor. So I'd just like to toss out Bonnie Henry's I love three things: be kind, be calm, be safe. And I think the other thing that came up earlier is important. Sometimes we're dealing with highly technical information in community engagement. You've had some cases recently in South Australia around toxic waste where there was a lot of energy and anxiety. And I think that what the pandemic has taught us, and what the tragic American experience has taught us, we do need to listen to our experts. We've been worried over the years about exclusionary professionalism and the expert blind spot. And I think I have to take a step back and say, well, that was a problem then. But nowadays, when we're talking about public health issues, we're going to have to privilege the views of the scientists and the experts to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves safe.
And that really strong, calm, compassionate leadership. So Dr. She's called Dr. Henry. Andrew's just sent a link to the shoe. I'm going to check that out. She was, what was her role? Is she the sort of chief public health?
The chief health officer for the province. So similar to you've got a saint in South Australia,
Andrew
right?
and I, we can. Funny that we just came. Look, Andrew and I have both got the same. When you were telling the story to us about your Dr. Henry, is that her name, Bonnie Henry?
Yes.
We said, well, we've got here in South Australia, we've got Saint Nicola Spurrier. She's actually Professor Nicola Spurrier. But, you know, in South Australia, the people have even gone to this length. This isn't a government initiative, obviously. This is a brilliant Instagram page called Just Adelaide Things. And they came up with this concept of Saint Nicola. But we've got a very similar relationship to what it sounds like you've got with Bonnie. In that Nicola Spurrier, as our chief public health officer here, has connected to the people. She's kind of led us through the last 2 years in this really calm, considered, classy kind of way. And she's really created this bond. I'm sure Andrew will also talk about this. My current gripe, though, is that since Omicron came into South Australia, and we do have an election coming up in South Australia, and we've got state elections and federal elections. We seem to have kind of pushed Nicola aside, and it's suddenly about the premiers kind of standing up and doing the talking. And one comment that our premier made a couple of weeks ago when he was asked, where is St. Nicola? Where's she gone? And he said, it's not really worth the resources, the time and energy to get all of the experts here. It's better her time is spent elsewhere. And for me, that got to me, because I thought, no, your resources need to be spent on those people who can be kind, be calm, and be safe, and those people with that relationship with the people. So Andrew, what do you think about St. Nicola?
She'd built up a trust where people were basically fangirling, if I can use that word, over Professor Spurrier. To a point where once I was walking down the street coming back from childcare, and I had my mask on in the street, you know, it was still at a time when people were, should I wear a mask or shouldn't I? But I had my mask on. She walked past me and she said to me, well done. And I was like, oh my God, that's Professor Spurrier telling me well done for wearing a mask. But she's basically, she went missing for about 2 weeks, I think it was. And the whole community on Facebook, you know, Just Adelaide Things, via their Instagram account and things like that, were like, where is she?
Where's she gone?
We trust her. We don't trust you, the other people. We trust her. We want to hear the facts and the figures from her. And the other thing that she did is she made things real. Like, for example, she took out the jargon, which is an excellent thing, obviously, in community engagement, take out the jargon, but she made things real. So like when we had mini lockdowns, because we had a few, not many, we had mini lockdowns, she's like, well, what can people do? And she said, well, my husband's going to be sorting out his sock drawer. You know, so she'd set a task for her husband to go and sort out his sock drawer. She made things real. I've just literally yesterday, I finished a 7-day stint in quarantine, you know, and so like, but I didn't have that messaging anymore from Professor Spurrier. It's all been about the Premier, it's all been about the health minister, because as Becky says, and this is another thing that's kind of steps back and gets in the way of community engagement, is there is an election coming up, and so it's all about the politics now, and trying to win votes. But he's, you know, the particular party and the particular premier, I think, has actually damaged his campaign in the last few weeks by what he's done. Basically pushed away the trust, pushed away the connection and the relationship with the community, and tried to take it on himself.
And
it seems to me that a big lesson here that you were learning, you're about to lose if you're not careful. And that's a lesson of the appropriate use, excuse the word, but it is sort of a utilitarian thing. The appropriate use of an expert, a scientific or medical expert, in a community engagement context where there's huge levels of anxiety. we've had problems over the years. All of us have had problems with the hydrologist who won't speak in plain words, the civil engineer who won't be civil. You know, we've had all of these problems with the so-called experts. And here we've got an example of appropriate use of experts. And then you don't want a politician in an election context demoting an expert when this expert has become so accessible to the community, because I see her as well. You know, and I'm amazed at what she's doing. I think these two women were cut from the same tree, and they've been, for some wonderful reason that we may never understand, been able to go into this position of influence and hold it, and hold our confidence and our trust in this very tempestuous environment. So we've learned about experts here. Let's not forget this, and let's not let the politicians swamp expertise with rhetoric, because here the science is everything. Yesterday I was looking at a feed online showing, it was from the New York Times, so I was pretty much trusting what they were saying. And they were showing attitudes towards the pandemic according to whether you were a Republican or a Democrat voter. It's worth looking at the New York Times daily feed. It's astonishing. Sometimes it was as much as a 50% difference, you know, believing in science, understanding where the pandemic was going, understanding the values of vaccinations and the new drugs and so on. I was just so stark. Well, so that's evidence-based research. And in our practice, we must value that. We can't just be holding people's hands and singing Kumbaya. We've got to go a lot further. And I think this pandemic's been very instructive in that way.
I wonder if we've unearthed something here with, we've come onto this call after having not got caught up for a year, and we have both bought our professors and our doctors who have done this incredible job. And we're also all saying, we're from Vancouver and South Australia, that the kind of politicians have sort of almost kind of messed it up a bit and got in the way, and we want to trust these experts. I'm almost wondering, just to put the call out on Global Community Engagement Day, if there are any other of these amazing people that are kind of saint status that the public have connected to. I'm thinking, Andrew, for yourself and I, we've both got strong connections with the UK, and I can't think of someone there that I hear my family talking about, or my friends. I don't know that they've had the public health expert there. I think it's been very, very politician driven, and I'm comparing the kind of be kind, be calm, be safe message. I almost want to say a maternal message, versus, I'm sure the UK one, again, somebody can, when they watch this, can send it to us what it was. It was something like stay alert, wasn't it? Or I don't know. You know, it was less.
They change it every day for 1 week, but the other one,
that's in the mode of the Grim Reaper AIDS campaign that they had on the television in Australia decades ago, which was just so tragic. Like, you can't do that. People do not change if they're scared witless. It's just not going to work, you know. But I think the other thing that I just want to put this for Global Community Engagement Day, I also want to put one other crisis on the table so we don't forget, and that is the crisis of global climate change. Now, the pandemic's been so massive, but here we've had absolutely shocking impacts of climate change just in this province. It's been unbelievable. And I wanted to talk for a moment about last summer, because this is a community engagement, community development issue that worried me so much. I live alone in an apartment in a neighborhood of renters and mostly high-rise apartments. And in British Columbia, over a weekend when we had what they called a heat dome, which in Adelaide you'd say was a mild day, right? It's all culturally determined. 500 more people died on that weekend. And they were almost all elderly people who lived alone. And my closest friend here, her neighbor, 82, died of heat stroke in her apartment. Now, I mean, any self-respecting Australian would say, well, that's crazy. How could that possibly happen? But it did. It absolutely, truly did. And I was phoning up people and telling them how Australians deal with a hot day, having lived in Adelaide and the Northern Territory and Brisbane. Now, nobody should die in a day when it's 38 degrees. Come on. That's ridiculous. It'll be 38 degrees in Adelaide tomorrow. It's absolutely ridiculous. So we also have to be thinking about how we're going to empower expert voices and educate and conscientize our community members so that we can also wrap our minds around climate change. We've now got a dual responsibility. Yeah. We got hybrid methods. We've got a dual responsibility because that one's not going away. I think we will get a grip on the pandemic and it will become endemic. I think we will get on top of it, even though there's now a new variant in British Columbia. I don't know whether it's hit you yet, but we've got it now, a new Omicron variant. But we're going to also have to educate our communities. We're really going to have to get people wrapping their heads around climate change because it's going to be so severe.
So maybe there's
just
something
to put a bright spot on it. Yes, right.
But I'm wondering if public health experts here through the pandemic, politicians definitely aside, because I think they've demonstrated to us what's going on there. I think public health experts have potentially given us this kind of ray of shining light of how you lead through something so disastrous and build rapport and relationship with people.
Exactly.
Admittedly, they're not engaging in the way that, Professor Spurrier isn't about to say, I'm thinking of doing this, what do you think? It's not engagement in that sense, but it's engagement in the sense of that building trust and rapport. And, most South Australians would speak very highly of her. And how can we do that? How can we replicate that in the climate change space or in
exactly.
upgrading the local playground space or, any kind of community engagement space?
It's ongoing. It's ongoing. It's not just for a month project or a 6-week project. It's ongoing. The other person that we should probably mention is Dr. Fauci. He
bless his socks, eh?
He was the American government version that was basically pushed aside because of politics. And obviously we're kind of connected more to the Western world, but I'm sure there are other characters like that. I say characters, but people, it's experts in their own right that have in South America, in Europe, in some of the different countries that people have connected with through that ongoing relationship that we need to be part of engagement. The other point I wanted to raise, because I know we're kind of stretching time a little bit here, but the last year, I think at the end of last year's video, we asked what should next year's theme be, and it wasn't going to be hybrid engagement at that point. It has become hybrid engagement, but I'm pretty sure Wendy's suggestion at the end of last year's video was how do we include experts more in engagement. I'm pretty sure.
Wow, is that right? I don't remember.
If politely we ticked a box there, I think so. I'm pretty sure that was what he was mentioning as a potential theme for this year, and it's just naturally come to that point where whether it's Saint Bonnie or Saint Nick, we've got those experts that we now trust, and we have a relationship with.
Doesn't it give you hope? It gives me hope that it's not that the public are disillusioned or untrusting. It's just that we need someone to trust. And if they front up and they do it in a really good way and they build that, like you say, Andrew, that long-term building of relationship, it really gives me hope.
Yeah.
So, and the key thing here, the very key thing that you said, Becky, which we need to say to all those experts that perhaps in community engagement we didn't 100% respect in the past, mea culpa. These people need to show up. What we've got with Bonnie and Theresa Tam, who is her federal counterpart in Canada, is showing up every day. Every day. I've got the photograph of Bonnie here. It's in black and white, but you can see her at the podium with the British Columbia flag day after day after day, and sometimes looking so exhausted. And at one point early in the pandemic, making herself so human to the people who were watching. She apologized to her hairdresser that she had tried to fix her hair and it hadn't worked out very well, right?
Real,
like, because you couldn't go to the hairdresser, right? That was completely banned for months and months. You couldn't go to the hairdresser. And here is this woman on public television apologizing for the mess she's made of her hair to a hairdresser because she's following the rules. Now, this is a level of self-disclosure that happened, I think, naturally. You know, she didn't script it. I'd like in a year that we have a very hard-hitting session. Maybe we can do a forum where we actually have people involved in a forum and talk about the lessons that we learned about experts, because I've banged on for decades about the expert blind spot and exclusionary professionalism, and I have demonized them. And I am humbled by the experience of your chief health officer and our chief health officer, and how it's positioned these two jurisdictions to do well. We have evidence. We have done well because of their support. So I think we need to have a session next year and figure out what are lessons for practice that we can take forward. I think it's wonderful.
How about that for tangents? We've just been talking for 30, 40 minutes. We started with Global Community Engagement Day. We hit hybrid engagement, and we've come full circle almost into those experts being involved as part of that process. And I think, you know, as we're starting Global Community Engagement Day here in Australia now, it's, you know, 9:30 in the morning nearly. We're about to start looking at our Twitter feeds and our Instagram feeds, that hybrid approach, you know, of using digital, but we'll talk to people through the day as well. And I'm sure I generally go out and have a coffee with at least one person during the day, though I'm not sure what the restrictions are at the moment. But yeah, I think that was an excellent conversation that we've just had.
Right.
And I think
Thank you both.
I was so looking forward to this chat. I do every year. I want it to be an annual thing that we keep doing. And again, just to mention my book, chapter 1 was about understanding engagement in the context of society. And I'm really conscious that somebody will have tuned into this thinking, oh, I do community engagement, you know, and they're working on a survey for the local playground upgrade. And we've suddenly gone like massive. Yeah. But this is all so relevant. And I think it's about applying everything we've just talked about to the smaller scale engagement. And yeah, it's about all of those things we've just talked about at whatever scale you're working at. Oh, Wendy, what's that you've got?
Yes. The Speak Out. It's a bit of a raggedy copy, but Becky's got one too. Anybody who's interested in having a conversation with me about how we might do a virtual version of the Speak Out.
Oh, wow.
There's a question to really tickle your fancy, Becky. You can think about that. So the co-author of this book is a woman named Wiwi Bunaman Mao, who's now in the United States. She's an Indonesian community cultural development practitioner. She's my co-author on this book. And she and I are asking the question, how might we go virtual? So that's your absolute crossover from the most embodied you can get to thinking about how we might bring this into the digital world. So anybody got any ideas? I'm at the same email address as before, wendy@sarkissian.com.au, and I'm really hot to talk to you. Thank you.
Excellent.
Wow. I love it. Oh, so good. So good. I never thought I'd hear the day where Wendy Sarkissian is saying, I want to go virtual with my Speak Out. I'm not sure she wants to. Do you want to? You're right.
I want to.
I do feel left out there. I do feel left out there. I don't have a book to promote.
I know, because I was learning. Just one more final subtle plug.
I'll have to
those who can't write books, Andrew, you know that. Those who do it, and those who can't write books about it. So don't worry about it.
You're busy doing it, Andrew.
Thank you both.
It's so true. Thank you so much.
Yes, happy birthday.
Okay.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. I'm going away on a ferry to an island is where I'm going, where I'm going to eat pizza and drink red wine.
Cool. So hashtag Global Community Engagement Day and hashtag happy birthday, Wendy.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye. Bye-bye.